Hi, everyone. Welcome to our annual Think and Drink. I am Hannah Neuschwander, the Communications Director for World Coffee Research. I am so excited to see all of you joining. We're going to give it just a minute or two to let a couple more people filter in from the waiting room, and then we'll get started. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, who you are, what organization you're with, maybe where you're calling from. You are welcome to let us know what you are drinking right now. If it's morning, like for me on the West Coast, I hope it's coffee. If it's 5 p.m., maybe I hope it's not coffee for your sake. Excuse me. Um, for those of you who are just filtering in, we're going to start here in just a second. You have hopefully arrived in the right place. This is the World Coffee Research Think and Drink. It is our annual report out to our community of members, partners, enthusiasts, and friends. We're going to be talking with you today a little bit about what we've achieved over the last year, what we're looking forward to over the coming year, and some of the highlights of the work so far, and then also have an opportunity for questions and answers. So please think about questions that you might have for us. You can put them in the question tab at the bottom as they come up, and we will reserve time at the end for doing that. So if you're just joining right now, please go ahead and let us know who you are and where you're calling from. You can put that in the chat. And I'm going to go ahead and get us started because it looks like our room is filling up here. Welcome, all of you. It's so wonderful to have you with us this morning or this evening. I'm Hannah Neuschwander. I am the Communications Director at World Coffee Research, and this is our annual Think and Drink. This, for a long time, has been our annual opportunity to get together with our member companies, our partners, our friends and enthusiasts. For many years, this was held as an in-person event at the SCA Expo. For the last couple of years, we have moved it to a virtual event so that we can welcome even more of you and update you on what we've been doing over the last year and what we plan on doing over the coming year. I am very excited to have with me this morning a bunch of wonderful panelists and colleagues. Perhaps we could advance to our next slide. Awesome. Okay, so we have some wonderful people with us here this morning to talk about the work that WCR has been up to. We have Pablo van Waldenfelds. He is the vice chair of the WCR board of directors, and he's with Chibo. He's going to be welcoming us and kicking things off. We have Dr. Jennifer Vern Long, our CEO at World Coffee Research. We have Dr. Kraig Kraft, our Global Partnerships Director. And we have Dr. Tania Humphrey, our Director of Research and Development. And we have all of you. Next slide, please. I just want to acknowledge and thank the member companies that make our work possible. We have over 200 companies in 29 countries that come together collaboratively to make this investment in global R&D to help create and ensure the future of coffee. These are some of our members here. Of course, there's many more. We can't fit all the logos on the slide, but without this collective investment and collaborative support, our work would not be possible. I also want to acknowledge the many, many, many partner organizations that we collaborate with. For those of you that have known us for a long time, you know that a really important aspect of our work is how we work with and through our partners in producing countries. So we collaborate with national coffee research institutes in many countries around the world to execute the breeding, trials, and nursery work that we do, and we really couldn't do it without them. And we do have many of those folks with us on the call today. So if you're just joining, please go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat, and I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Pablo to get us started.
Thank you so much, Hannah, and welcome everyone. It's really a big pleasure to be with you today in my role as Corporate Responsibility Director at CIBO, but today, more importantly, as Vice Chair of the Board of Directors WCR. And I was asked to say a few welcoming words and also tell you guys about why WCR matters. And if we look at the coffee industry right now, we could focus on many challenges, interesting topics that are moving the markets. It's about prices, logistics crisis, tariffs, geopolitics, and so on and so forth. Um, but if you look at, or you would ask me what the single biggest risk to a sustainable future of coffee cultivation would be, my clear answer, despite all the other challenges we are facing, would be climate change and its consequences. We and other companies that have been mentioned here or on the slide and supporting this work are doing farmer support programs and help farmers adopt climate smart practices. But there's only so much we can do to help the coffee cultivation adapt to climate change if we don't have the technology that is needed to back it up. And at the center of this is a good variety, choice of varieties for the farmers that the farmers in their respective regions can choose from, and that are adapted to the challenges that come with climate change. And let me give you some insights about a recent trip I did to El Salvador. I was invited to join the World Coffee Research team there, and it was amazing. I could witness how scientific innovation is actually creating these resilient pathways for coffee's thriving future by developing these varieties of the future. I could walk through WCR's trial fields, and I was really struck by the remarkable progress that is already being achieved by this organization and by the good energy of the researchers working in the field and at the frontier of agricultural innovation, because this is about innovation. Um, World Coffee Research's mission is one about optimism. It's about growing, protecting, and enhancing supplies of quality coffee, while at the same time improving producer livelihoods through cutting-edge science. So it's a beautiful mission that combines technology, science, and sustainability, which sustainability is to the core of my personal mission at my company. Um, this will work when the industry, producing countries, and research institutes unite behind this type of science-based solutions. And this way we can create a more sustainable coffee sector that benefits everyone involved, from farmers to consumers. This should be the ultimate goal. Not every time all players in the industry share the same interests, but I think one of the beauties also about the work WCR does, in this case, we do. The farmers want to grow coffee. They want to sell good quality coffees, earn some money with it. We, as roasters, want to be able to buy coffee from trees, roast it, sell it to our consumers. Our consumers want quality coffees also in the decades to come. And as a member of WCR's board of directors, I recognize the need for more industry partners to join this movement. So those of you who aren't members yet, I can only urge you to rethink that and join as soon as possible. We need increased funding and wider collaboration to scale these promising innovations before climate change outpaces our efforts. We can do this, but we have to do this together. So this is really an invitation to join this movement. So for those who are here, you have at least done the first step. You are interested in what's coming up. So thanks for joining us. And to all member companies and WCR partners who continue to make this work possible, also a big thank you, and please stay on board. And with that, I'll hand over to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. And I want to welcome everyone here today. And next slide, please. And I'm going to share with you an outlook. Many of you are actually on the front lines of the work that we're doing. As a member company or a company in the business, you're facing high coffee prices. If you want to go to the next slide, please. For those of you who are in farming or are National Coffee Institute researchers, you also see the challenges that we're facing from your specific vantage point. Many of us are thinking about high coffee prices across the industry, and that is in part a function of a shortage of supply. And so for some farmers, this creates opportunity. And for other farmers, this is a huge challenge. And we know that with the challenges facing us with climate change and the rise of synchronous climate events, where there are multiple locations facing these challenges at the same time, the underinvestment in innovation is really affecting farmers, exporting countries, tax revenue generated from exports, and certainly customers' ability to get coffee and for our roasting companies to have product to supply their customers. So this is a problem that is shared across our entire supply chain. And when we think about this, it can be very depressing, but it's also a point when we think to ourselves, how do we take advantage of this situation and turn a challenge into an opportunity? And that's why it's very exciting to be in science. And so, next slide, please. I'd like to comment that it is through global partnership, it's through the activities of many of you that are on this call today who are working at Origin as scientists, as farmers, as operators across the input supply chains, who are focusing on how we can create better coffee varieties faster to enhance the productivity and climate resilience of farmers, to, of course, improve quality for a range of different markets, and to reduce the supply chain risk. It's through our global partnership community that we take a global problem and turn it into a global opportunity. And it's through our scale of operations that we can deliver speed. And so if we each tried to solve this challenge on our own, we would be slow and we would be ineffective at delivering technology that genuinely responds to the needs of farmers. Why, by working together, we actually have created something completely new as an industry with the global breeding networks and the partnerships at Origin. Next slide, please. We are focused together on this focused agenda of protecting origin diversity by delivering new varieties to help farmers thrive. This shared focus on the number of varieties available in a number of countries, each country is able to deliver technology for their own farmers in partnership with a global network. And through our global reach, our work is focused on maximizing benefits for farmers around the world in many countries. And I think it's just incredibly exciting when I look at all the names. I was scrolling through the names of everyone who's joined today. This is a truly global initiative from member companies from Japan to the US to Mexico to Europe. Companies from across the entire world, more than 30 countries, are members of WCR, and our partners in producing countries, representing many, many countries. We have created something amazing together, but with a clear focus: climate resilient varieties to drive value for farmers and create opportunity for farmers while protecting origin diversity at scale. Next slide, please. So when we look at the product pipeline that we have developed in partnership with each of the National Coffee Institutes who participate in our programs, we focus on breeding, and that's been a program area that many of you have been actively involved in the last couple of years because we've launched the Arabica Breeding Network. The Robusta Breeding Network is on its way, and it's this partnership in breeding that takes global partnership and delivers value at a national level. And Tania will be talking about that a bit more in her remarks. Our trials program, the multi-location variety trial that many of you have had experience with, this has enabled you to evaluate the performance of varieties in your country to see how it performs and to look for opportunities for taking those genetics to the next steps for variety release and engagement with variety owners. And it's this idea that innovation can be generated globally and that the partnerships between producing countries and between us and producing countries is what's driving value for farmers worldwide. But as we all know, it doesn't matter if you have the best varieties in the world. If they don't make their way into farmers' fields, who cares? We need to get technology into farmers' hands to enable farmers to have the climate resilient tools and technologies necessary to succeed. And so it's through our nursery activities and our support of input supply chains that we are seeking to build up the system in partnership with national authorities and partners across the input supply chain in producing countries to find those ways to improve the movement of genetics through that system to ensure that when a farmer gets a new plant and puts a new tree on their farm, that they are excited and confident in the performance of that tree. All of this is made possible. This entire program agenda is made possible because of the commitment, not only of our partners who are actually doing the work every day to make this happen, but next slide, please. But it's as well the investment of our member companies. In 2025, our companies have renewed to a $10 million commitment to ensure that this work on coffee variety development and seed systems continues to achieve our goals of supporting origin diversity and ensuring that these genetics are moving into supply channels to get to farmers' fields. At the same time, we are building on the momentum that we saw in 2024 with the G7 initiative, where coffee was brought to the highest levels of government in the G7, acknowledged as a very important commodity of which we have a shared desire to support its success. And so, with the elevation of coffee on the G7 initiative, we are now using this moment to call on especially consuming country governments to join industry and co-invest to close the innovation gap in coffee, to help farmers generate and have access to technology that drives value for their production and ensures that countries can continue successfully exporting coffee. But also, it's a partnership and a call to action with producing country governments to work with us and to really deepen this partnership that we have, that's been growing over the years with this with the breeding networks as part of the catalyst of this global partnership, but to work with producing country governments as well to prioritize this kind of investment and engagement so that all of us are doing our part to bring these technologies to farmers as quickly as we can and as responsibly as we can. Which brings us to my last slide before I turn it over to my colleagues who are going to tell you more specifically about our program in the recent year, is that for those of you who are less familiar with our organization, in the end, what we seek to do is to be, as Pablo described, a global movement that provides an unparalleled effort at global scale to use that global scale to achieve transformation in the coffee industry far faster than we could without this technology. And I think this is one point that I wanted to raise here before I turn it over to my colleagues, is that, of course, we don't see that just a variety is a silver bullet. We absolutely understand that investment in farmers' capacity, strengthening access to input supply chains, technical assistance, and financing to facilitate successful agriculture, all of that is absolutely important. And we see all of those components as necessary for success of our sector. We also know that with the introduction of high-performing genetics, like many other commodities around the world, that has been a catalyst for incentivizing investment. And so it's this unparalleled global effort to develop varieties that are high-performing, climate-resilient, high-yielding materials that farmers can grow and have confidence in. It reduces farmer risk and it increases opportunity. And that is what helps incentivize deeper investment that might not have been there when the risks were higher and the opportunities were fewer. And so we absolutely are excited to continue this effort going forward with our focus on variety development, recognizing that it is a component technology that often fits into the programs and activities of many of you who may not work specifically in varieties, but we want to see and to showcase to you the potential for reducing risk and generating opportunity for farmers. And that's what we're excited about in the months and years ahead. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Kraig Kraft, who will be providing you a description of our global leadership and our nursery activities. Over to you, Kraig.
Thank you, Vern. Can you go to the next slide, please? All right. Hi, everyone. Let's try something here. This is kind of my first time with this Zoom platform for webinar. If you drank coffee this morning, can you give me a thumbs up reaction? Maybe it's in the chat. Let me see a little show of hands. Yeah, there we go. Fantastic. Now, find me an emoji that would sum up your feelings about drinking synthetic coffee in 10 years time. How would you feel about drinking synthetic coffee? Yeah, I love that. Some mixed emotions there. I think, I think we're all aligned here. Um, I know I would like to drink real coffee that comes from trees in the future, and it looks like you do as well. In order to ensure this future and to make coffee production successful for all producers, we need greater public investment for coffee R&D. Supporting coffee agricultural research and development is necessary to secure supplies, stabilize export revenues, and enhance farmer livelihoods. In 2023, since Dr. Mywish Moretia quantified the innovation gap for coffee and shared it with all of you via a WCR webinar, we have been working to increase public sector investment in coffee R&D. In the last year, we've had some good wins to report. As Vern mentioned, the G7 countries named coffee as a priority value chain for sustainable agricultural investments. USAID had committed funding to our research agenda, and member companies and partner trade associations around the world are continuing to actively participate in our advocacy efforts. While the abrupt dissolution of USAID and the loss of their funding is a setback, we have shifted our own internal budget to privately fund the most critical projects that would have been funded through this public funding. With the chaos of this current donor landscape, we believe there remains opportunities to those of us who have a clearly articulated message and value proposition. We're going to continue to advocate for investments that help deliver technologies to farmers. Now is not the time to slow down and take our foot off the gas. Next slide, please. One of our most important achievements in 2024 was driving increased awareness of the need for greater public funding in coffee seed systems. Coffee renovation projects are often funded by individual companies or sometimes producing country governments, banks. In order to maximize the impact of these renovation investments, it's critical to ensure that trees that are going to farmers are the right trees, that they're the right varieties delivered at the best possible time and in the best physiological health. By strengthening these systems that move trees to farmers, this ensures that farmers are actually getting the benefits offered by newer technology and newer varieties. Next slide, please. Our program addresses immediate needs for improving seed systems and nurseries, but this is also about getting systems ready for the influx of new genetics that is going to move out of our breeding program and out of our partners' breeding programs in the next couple of years. Every one of our National Coffee Institute partners in the breeding programs has the raw genetics and information from our global breeding network to select high-performing candidates for creation of a new variety. But every single partner needs nursery and seed systems in place in their respective countries that are going to allow farmers to access this new material. Next slide, please. This slide here, I think, covers some of our accomplishments in seed systems in 2024. A lot of this came through the USDA-funded MOCA project in Central America, but we also had a number of activities in Uganda as well. I'll leave it here for 1 second. The next slide has a testimonial video that goes into more detail about our activities in Peru. Can we cue the video?
Yo creo que parte de nuestra responsabilidad como los que somos extensionistas, es educar al productor para decirle, mire, no se embarque, usted compra algo que no es, va a tener que vivir con eso los próximos 25 años de su vida. Van a tener sus hijos cosechando semilla de algo que no es.
Nosotros creemos que una forma de sostener el sector café y rentabilizar nuestras fincas y reducir el riesgo ante estos factores tanto de roya y clima, podemos sostener que nuestros productores sigan produciendo café y a la vez a la industria poder sostener ofertándoles este producto. Como Senfro Café hemos analizado que las nuevas variedades nos están dando tres características: nos están dando producción, nos están dando resistencia tanto a sequía como a la roya, y en el caso la calidad sensorial, sin descuidar este factor. Entonces, bajo esos criterios estamos enfocando el trabajo de las nuevas variedades.
Es importante sembrar el futuro de la caficultura peruana. Esto nos ayuda a ordenar el parque cafetalero que tenemos a nivel nacional, que nos ayude a saber qué es lo que estamos poniendo para las próximas generaciones. Esa planta de café que proviene de una semilla, necesitamos garantizar que los productores tengan la certeza y la confianza que eso los va a acompañar, no solamente para su familia, sino para la región y para el país, que se venda en el mundo como cafés de origen o cafés de cierta garantía para los consumidores.
What better way to close by having some of the participants and beneficiaries talk about the benefit of these programs? This slide here shares with you some of the publicly available resources that we have made that talks about the quality assurance. How do we do quality assurance in the seed sector? And what are the steps necessary for farmers and nursery owners to be able to ensure that farmers have the best access to genetically pure material that's produced in the best way possible. So I'd like to close. Thank you very much. I'm going to let Tania talk about the advances in.
Great. Thanks, Kraig. So through our global breeding networks, WCR, together with our partners in many producing countries, are taking on the challenge of variety improvement. And we're doing it collaboratively at a global scale and speed that has never before been seen in coffee. So today I'm going to give you a bit of a brief update on the progress in our Arabica and Robusta breeding networks. Now, both of these breeding programs are aimed at producing new climate-resilient varieties that have improved yield, disease resistance, and quality as the target traits. Next slide, please. So Innovea is our global Arabica breeding network that we've talked about multiple times before. And in the past year, we've made some great progress in this network. So in the past year, the most diverse set of high-performing Arabica material that have been created were successfully transferred across international borders into our partners' hands. And any of you who've ever tried to move coffee genetics and material around the world may appreciate what a big undertaking this is, and certainly a challenge with many barriers. So we were able to move this material into our partners' hands. And here this slide shows a number of pictures of these trees currently going into the ground at our partner sites in 7 out of the 9 partner locations. So these trees are going to provide the foundation for breeding programs at these partners in our partner institutes that are going to be tailor-made to meet the needs of the producers in their countries, to meet the market demands and the climate conditions specific to their countries. And in this network, data from all of these countries is going to be collected and aggregated centrally, so we really start to understand the performance of this genetic material under many different climate conditions. So the big success last year is trees are going in the ground. Now the data collection starts, and this material will be evaluated for the next 5 to 6 years. In parallel to the global network and the material in our partners' hands, we also have our own speed breeding pipeline. And so what this means is we have developed an approach that layers on multiple different techniques that's focused on accelerating the time from seed to seed. So this is the generation time in one breeding cycle of coffee. So from the time you plant one seed, the plant grows, flowers, and you collect the next seed, we're able to shorten that timeline by greater than a year. That means you can do breeding much faster. So with that approach, growing the plants in the pots, as you can see on the right-hand side of this picture, we're able to make selections much faster. As well, we're using many genomics tools, genetic markers, genomic selection, and the global data coming from across our network to really make the best selections. And so through this speed breeding pipeline, we are going to be producing 100 new varieties. And now these are stable seed propagated varieties that will be ready by 2030 and will be made available to partners and many different countries to move out into trials. So these are some really high value material that we're excited to see coming along in our breeding program. Next slide, please. So that's Arabica breeding, our Innovea network that was launched in 2022. What we've been doing also is building essentially the same thing for Robusta breeding. So a global collaborative breeding network in Robusta. So it's a similar idea where we've partnered with national coffee institutes in several producing countries. And in the past year, we've signed on 6 partners who are going to be formally a part of this network. And we'll be announcing this officially later on in the year. So we'll be saying more about those partnerships in time to come. But in parallel to the partnerships, we've also started doing the work of breeding. So last year, we did the crosses done at our farm in El Salvador. And in doing these crosses, what we're doing is combining material from very diverse genetic groups from this Robusta collection that we have that was contributed to us from CIRAD. And so we've been able to combine different genetics from diverse genetic groups to create entirely new Robusta material. Now, that material is now in the hands of a commercial propagator who is essentially cloning and multiplying that material up with the goal of producing 1,000 new and unique genotypes that will be distributed to our partners in the network in 1 to 2 years' time. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about this as we move forward. So I won't tell you all about it now, but other than to say we're making great progress and we're really proud of that. Next slide, please. So breeding is our highest priority, our biggest, our most exciting program. We talk about it a lot, but we do recognize that the timelines are really long, even when you use modern genomics approaches and all types of techniques that are focused on speed and efficiency. It still takes a long time. So we recognize the need for varieties is now, and the way we're addressing this near-term need is through our trials program. And so this is really designed about evaluating the best of what's already out there and helping to move it into farmers' hands. Now, the picture on the right here is one of the success stories out of our trials program. It came from the video you just saw in Peru. This is a variety, IPR 107, which is a high-performing commercial variety that came out of Brazil. And Peru tested this variety in their IMLVT site, and it performed really well. And so what we were able to do is facilitate the formal transfer of IPR 107 into Peru so that we're now planting seed lots, genetically pure material, and this variety is now going to be available to Peruvian farmers in the near term. So this is what they have to work with now while they wait for even better material to come from out of the breeding programs. Next slide, please. The other exciting thing in the past year is the progress on our F1 hybrids. So in the past year, we have moved 10,000 trees of our F1 hybrids into 3 countries that are now moving to pre-commercial on-farm testing. So you may remember when we've talked about these in the past, these are the top 4 selections from a set of first generation hybrids that were created by crossing high cup quality material with high yielding rust resistant varieties. And so these have already been evaluated in the field. These are the top selections. We already know they perform well. And now we're moving to that next stage of testing at scale on farm with the goal of eventually moving them out into farmers' hands. And so these are getting planted in the field over the next week or 2 even. They're going into Peru and Guatemala and Costa Rica. And we hope to be seeing results of those over time. Now, one of the interesting things about this trial is it's allowing us to test a new partnership-based model for running a trialing network. And this means in this particular example, we have partnered with industry. So we made these trees available to our member companies in members of WCR and their own networks to facilitate the access to farms in these countries and help to manage and operate those trials. So that's a new model that we're testing out and certainly something that we're going to be exploring in future as we think about moving new and better material out to market. Next slide, please. Now, the other big project in our trialing program is, of course, the International Multi-Location Variety Trial, which is the largest coffee variety trial in the world. It took 31 commercial coffee varieties and distributed them across to all of our partners so that they were planted in 22 sites in 15 different countries. Now, this trial has been running already for 6 or 7 years, so it's very much reaching maturity, which means it's really at an exciting time for us. So we have this really big, valuable data set over multiple years in many different environmental conditions, testing the exact same set of varieties. And so because we've got this really big, valuable data set, we're really entering a new phase where we're focused on extracting value. What are the ways in which we can really extract the most information and value out of this data set? And essentially, there's 3 things that I wanted to tell you about where we've progressed in the past year. The first that we're really excited about is a new collaboration with climate scientists at CIAT in Colombia. So this is where what we're doing is combining this large global performance data of how trees perform in the field. This is our data set. We're combining with the Colombian climate modeling science data that they have. So these 2 data sets on climate and performance, as well as the predictive ability to predict the climates of the future. All of this data is being combined in this with this sophisticated new model to create a user interface that we'll be coming out with later on this year, which enables any user to essentially go in and input a location of their choice. If, for example, if you're interested in putting in new varieties on a farm in Guatemala in a particular location, you can enter the coordinates, and this system will pull up all the climate data for the location. It will pull up the variety performance data and enable a user to really predict which varieties could perform best in that particular location. So this could be a really interesting tool for many, many different people around the world. And It'll be coming out later this year. A beta test version focused on Latin America will be produced in Spanish later this year, and then followed shortly after by a global version, which will be available in English and Spanish. So you'll get to hear a lot more about that, but that's just one example of how we're using this really interesting and valuable data set to do practical things for farmers and end users. So that's the first one I mentioned. The second one, I just wanted to sneak in a quick announcement. We're also publishing the IMLBT data in a scientific publication. So this is one of the first research publications to come out of this work. And it certainly makes our science team very proud to see that. But what it also means is that data now becomes publicly available to the science community to use and to mine and dig around to look for any other valuable insights. So that's exciting too. The third thing that we're doing with IMLBT is we're entering an extension phase. So the whole project as a whole is mature. It's in a wind down phase. We are closing a lot of the sites and shrinking down the footprint of this trial. But what we've done is selected a small subset of sites that have very good value in terms of their representative climates that those sites represent, but also the collaborative nature and the quality of data that's coming off of those sites. So 7 of these sites now will be entering into this extended phase. And so what that means is beyond the initial 6 years of data, we're now going to have this longer data set. So those trees will be evaluated for 12 years, because we know that the performance of coffee trees does change over time. As well, they're going through a pruning process. So we'll be able to see how the trees respond to pruning and general age of the trial. This will create an even more valuable data set that gives the scientists and the growers in these countries something even more valuable to look at. So that has been happening as well with the IMLBT, and it continues to be a valuable source of data that helps to underpin and inform what we're doing in our breeding networks. So that's all I really have time for in terms of a quick update. Of course, I'm very happy to answer any questions about any of that or other of our work that you may have heard about. So I think I'll pass it back to Hannah at this point.
Thank you so much, Tania, and thank you to Vern and Kraig and Pablo as well for your insights and your updates. We're gonna turn in just a second to a Q&A. So if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A tab. You'll see it at the bottom. And we will get to as many of them as we can. I just want to kind of sum up by saying, you know, what we've heard today from Vern, from Kraig, from Tania, and from Pablo as well, is a larger story, not just about science and innovation and creating new varieties to help farmers withstand the challenges of climate change and to secure the future of our industry, but also about the systems that underpin that innovation and help move them to farmers. So creating better varieties and testing better varieties is one thing. Moving them out into the world and ensuring that farmers can access them is another. And it requires a lot of overlapping, strategic, complementary types of investments, not just in the science itself, but also in seed systems that help move those varieties out and in the larger kind of R&D ecosystem and farmer support ecosystem. So what we're really trying to do and what we're trying to articulate is a shift, a significant shift toward an innovation mindset that helps us secure a future where we have really high quality coffee available when we need it in the quantities and at the qualities we need it from a diverse number of origins, so that the economic benefits of that production is supporting many, many farmers around the world to thrive. And I think we all can see right now in the environment that we're in with these historic high prices that that system is threatened. But with the work that we're doing together with our partners and together with our collaborative membership model, I think all of the people joining me on the call here today agree that we have a tremendous amount of optimism about the future of coffee. And so with that, I'm gonna oh, sorry, next slide. There's just one more one more slide. If you are interested in following along and getting regular updates, please feel free to scan the QR code, sign up for our newsletter. If you're not a member company, we encourage you to join us and to just keep in touch. I'm going to go ahead and move us into our Q&A conversation now. Thank you to everybody who has posted in the chat. Since we just ended with Tania and some of our more technical questions, I'm gonna stay there for a minute. We have a couple of questions about, just the kind of technical aspects of variety development and variety release. Tania, Jamie Trebby asked a question about, it was specific to rejuvenation pruning processes that we're using in our IMLVT, but I'm actually going to make it more general because it is a question we get a lot from people. When you're running a global trial network and you have lots of partners in lots of places who generally often do have different cultural practices for how they're growing coffee trees, how do you deal with that? Do you standardize the practices that everyone's following, even if they don't reflect what's common locally for farmers in that country? Or how do you deal with that complexity?
Yeah, that's a good question, Hannah. So it's a challenge. And it sort of highlights one of the things that we constantly have to do in running these global breeding networks is trade-off. Trade-off between what's scientifically perfect, there's no such thing, but the idealized scientific way versus what's very practical for farmers. And so this is the exact type of thing we have to do. So to standardize things across our global network, ideally we'd have everyone do things exactly the same. But we know that everyone has different conditions, everyone has different local practices. So what we try to do is create a compromise. What we don't want to do is run a trial that's operating really high-end, using everything perfect and optimized, if that doesn't represent what is done locally in that country. So we try to find a reasonable compromise. And this is one of the things we do working collaboratively with our partners. We very much talk about the approaches. We say, all right, from scientific perspective, we want to control all of these variables. We'd like to do it this way. How is it that you do it in your country? And we kind of agree on this compromise approach that standardizes it to a certain level, but still allows it to mostly approximate local conditions. And I think the particular pruning example, for the IMLVT, we did tell all of our partners exactly how to do the pruning. Even if it was different to how they typically do it, they all pruned the plants in the same way so that we could collect that data. So it is a compromise, but we're very much thinking from both perspectives: scientific, technically accurate versus practical from a farmer perspective.
I'm going to stick with you for one more question. I'm going to try to link two different questions that we got in the chat. So Jason Alnasan asked about, so it's great that you create new varieties and they have this high potential. How do you safeguard that potential as you move the varieties out of the breeding pipeline and into farmers' fields? How do you safeguard the genetic identity of these new varieties? Which I think is a little bit connected to a question that Minnie Foreman asked, which is about specific to F1 hybrid varieties. But when farmers are used to taking seed from their own trees on their own farm, as opposed to going and getting them from a nursery, you run into some of those same risks. So that can be very risky for farmers. What is it that WCR is doing in its nursery and seed sector programs to try to ensure that the higher genetic potential coming from out of these breeding programs is actually reaching farmers?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I think this is an important issue that connects what we're doing in our seed sector program with our breeding program. Because if we think we are breeding newer and better varieties for the future, we want to be ensuring that we are putting those varieties out into a downstream distribution system that's functional. So a lot of the work that Amelia and the nursery team do to ensure the genetic purity of this material, that we've got genetically conforming seed lots, we have nursery operators that are distributing known material, all of that is cleaning up the system in preparation for when our varieties move through that system. So we absolutely need to implement systems of quality control, genotyping, so genetic testing, getting the DNA fingerprint of these trees is the critical tool that enables us to check it at every step of the way. And it's absolutely something we need to do. So that process, it's happening now in existing variety distribution chains, and it's something that we're thinking about very intensely as we prepare to move our varieties out. The specific example of F1 hybrids is a little different because these are a little bit special. They need to be handled with care. They typically do require higher levels of input, and they need to be managed properly because farmers cannot save the seed of F1 hybrids. And so we are thinking very cautiously about where we're putting our F1 hybrids out, and we're putting them only into systems where farmers have a degree of familiarity with these type of plants, as well controlling the propagation of them is another critical step of that. So I think that's a specific example, but it's the same philosophy that the quality control and the downstream distribution networks really have to be taken seriously.
So I'm going to shift over to Kraig with a question about partnerships. And I don't want to say this name incorrectly, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to do, but it's from Alexandra Niazimana. Kraig, can you talk a little bit about building synergies and building partnerships between research institutes and maybe development partners like local NGOs? How does this play out in a research context, and what opportunities does partnership development provide?
Oops. Yeah, this is what WCR does is we're hyper focused on creating new varieties. We believe that varieties is a technology that helps address multiple problems that producers face. And how do farmers get access to those? The distribution, the local agronomy, the marketing, value addition, these are all other aspects that as an organization we don't handle. And so we partner with local NGOs in some of these larger consortiums or publicly funded projects. For example, in the results that I was sharing from the MOCA project, that was a project funded by the US Department of Agriculture. It was led by TechnoServe, and TechnoServe brought in other local NGOs to complement the piece that WCR handled. In that case, we were looking at nurseries and establishing nurseries that had high levels of genetic conformity for certain varieties and ensuring that they had the best practices. But TechnoServe engaged other people on the value addition, the marketing, the agronomy, and those pieces. So absolutely, I think it's just important to understand what's the role of each partner in creating those types of partnerships. Thanks.
This might be a double answer. Like I might look to two of you to help with this one, Vern and Pablo. I'm going to highlight part of a question that Jamie Trubby asked about for those of us, and speaking from the position of being a member company, who are believe in the work that WCR is doing and want to encourage others to get on board, whether that is other companies or maybe the governments of the countries that you live and operate your business in. Is there anything that we can learn from that? Have you seen that certain things are more successful, approaches are more successful than others? Maybe Vern, I'll have you start and just talk a little bit about what you've seen member companies do effectively, or even our partner governments. And then Pablo, since you actually have experience sitting in those shoes, I might ask you to weigh in as well on what you've seen.
Absolutely. The role of WCR members is not just to support and finance the work that we do, but it's to bring your voice to the table and to shape the agenda of what we do as an organization, but also to help foster a culture of support among governments. In the end, coffee is a deeply public-private commodity. There is not just a universe of private sector actors that can only work alone in an isolated way with coffee. Coffee it's a huge source of export revenue for governments. And so part of this is as new technologies come online, our member companies are those who have financed this technology, but also can give assurances to producing countries that you're interested in this material. So part of it is you are our member companies, the demand for the coffee that's being generated with these new varieties. So in terms of very concrete actions that you can take, there's global advocacy engagement with your consuming country governments. So if you are in a consuming country or predominantly consuming country, and we have active engagement with European governments, the Japanese government, Australia, the US, Canada. There's opportunity to plug in and provide very specific, from a letter to your elected official to joining a meeting to educate about the value of coffee. So I'll let Pablo talk a bit more about those specific ones. I think the other part is for those of you in producing countries who are interested in how you, as a person in the supply chain, or as a farmer, as a researcher, can engage. We seek to support you to help make the systems around you work better. So giving us feedback on how things are working, and so that we can then elevate that to our network. In the end, the power of WCR is the power of the network. It's by being able to tap into the input from those of you who are at origin, who face the challenges that you face and want to bring technology into farmers' fields to support production, exports. We want to make sure that works well. And so insofar as we're bringing investment from outside, we want to understand how to align that investment most strategically. So communication and leveraging the network is really important for every single person on this call, because you all have a part to play in moving this world forward. Go ahead, Pablo.
Yes, happy to take over, Vern. Thank you. Yes, so you already mentioned the engagement and brokering between WCR's work and, for example, our home country governments, and helping to secure long-term funding and commitment to coffee research, R&D, the direct WCR agenda, but also, for example, to building the seed sectors and the farmer support programs that are largely financed by private sector nowadays. And this, in our case, has taken different forms, from actually writing letters to visiting ministries, development finance institutions, speaking at conferences, and so on. And especially if you are a member of the board, that's part of your board duties also, not to connect to stakeholders and try to secure fundraising. If you look at the interest of a company, so why should you be involved, and why should you be involved early at this stage at latest if you haven't been doing it so far? It's really we are working with farmers, through exporters, through NGOs all around the world. And Tania spoke to the agronomic package you need, for example, when you deliver F1 hybrids. So which are the farmers that actually can use this technology properly? What's the farmer support services, the extension services that you need around it? What's the type of inputs you need, et cetera, et cetera. This needs to go into training programs, and we are as companies can support the strategies, the development of the strategies on where to move. Also provide input in terms of what are the quality traits that we want to see in new varieties. What are the actual traits that we want to see developed by WCR? All these topics are influenced by the member companies, and it's only possible to do so if you are on board.
That, I think, is a really good place for us to wrap up. I know others of you asked questions that we didn't have a chance to get to. If we weren't able to answer in the chat right away, we will do our best to follow up on all of those so that we don't leave you hanging. I want to thank our panelists, Tania, Vern, Pablo, Kraig. I want to thank the whole team that sits behind them, helping execute all this work over the year. And of course, our member companies, and our partners, and all of you for joining us this morning. Please feel free to reach out if you have further questions. You can email us at info@worldcoffeeresearch.com.